favors. I know all Kennedy had to pick the phone up and say, could you do this? And my money would come through the Interior Department, and it had to go through the committee that the West Virginia senator maintained. And about a week after I got back, I got a phone call from Kennedy. He said, well, I asked for $500,000. He said, you have your money. And he added $50,000 every year after that.
Wow.
So, but in any case, we were at about 11:30, and he says, how would all of you like to eat in the Senate dining room?
Oh, cool.
And I said, wow, I said, that would be very nice. So he brought in his chief of staff and said, take them over through the underground trolley to the Capitol building and take them up to the dining room and make sure they get a good seat and go in and eat. So he went over and set us all up, and so we chose a table, a round table, right in the center.
Mm-hmm.
So if you came through any direction, you almost had to go by the table. So we're sitting there, and we were early, and one of the what was his name? He was ran for president. His wife was a secretary in one of the cabinet offices. Dole, Bob Dole.
Oh, I remember hearing about him.
So I looked over, and Bob Dole stuck his head in the door, looked around, and turned around, walked out. I was, oh, we had a chance to build Bob, to meet Bob Dole. Then there was another Republican senator stuck his head in the door. I think it was Crawford. And he looked around, and then he turned and went out. So we lost that one. And pretty soon, the two of them came in, and right behind them was President George Bush.
Oh.
And he came right by our table, and he said hello to us, shook our hands, and they sat over in the corner where there were no windows, and he had two Secret Servicemen with him.
Makes sense.
And the senator. So we reported from the ledger, Katie Cornell, she kept bugging me. Mr. Mayor, you're the mayor, why don't you go over and talk to the president? Why don't you go talk to him? So finally I said, fine, I'll go talk to the president. So I got up and went over, and of course, kept my hands out of my pocket because they had one metal detector going into the Capitol building, and I was sure that those Secret Service guys, they didn't know who I was. So I kept my hands out of my pocket, went over to the president. I said, Mr. President, I said, I think you and I have a friend in common. And, oh, he said, who's that? I said, Ronnie Kaufman. Well, Ronnie Kaufman had ran my first 5 or 6 campaigns. He was a Republican, I was a Democrat then. And he worked for Bush and Reagan. And Bush became the vice president, Reagan became the president. So for 8 years, Bush was the vice president, and Ronnie worked in the vice president's office. And so Ronnie helped him big time in his campaign. So he looks over at Bob Dole, he says, Bob, he says, you know, that Jewish kid from Quincy? And I said, and so we chatted for a while, and I thanked him for his time and told him I appreciate it, and went back and sat down. Never did get the pictures. They had their own photographers to go with them, and they were taking pictures the whole time. We were all there, and when I was there talking to him, he was saying they were taking pictures, and Ronnie Kaufman couldn't even find the pictures. But that's how I met Bush 41. He was very, very slight of build, very skinny.
Really?
He almost looked weak or emaciated.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And when he ran for president, the Democrats tried to paint him as a weakling. He was a guy that was shot down in a fighter plane by the Japanese over the Pacific.
Wow. I was going to say, wasn't he in the military?
Yeah, he fished out of the sea. In fact, he actually dove up in a parachute when he was 80 years old.
Did he really?
Yeah.
What? Oh my gosh!
And so that was my introduction to.
That's so cool.
Yeah. We met your grandmother and I. We met Clinton and Hillary probably 15 times, 10, 15 times. So that wasn't, and we were invited to the White House a couple of times for a Christmas reception. And you go in there and you look around, and it was a nice hors d'oeuvres and they had all kinds of things going on. They had, each branch of the service had either a quartet or a band in one of the rooms. So you go around, and I keep saying to your grandma, "Who's that woman? You don't know who she is? You see her on TV all the time, like Meryl Streep.
Oh my gosh!
And all of them. And all the ones you see who are secretaries of state, they were all there.
Wow.
And after a while, people started trickling out, and you had to go through a hallway to get out of the White House. You'd walk down there, and they'd stop you, and then they'd take you in a room, and there's the president and the first lady, and you get your picture taken with them.
Yeah.
And they take all the information. About 3 or 4 weeks later, I'd get a big brown envelope with the pictures with their autographs on them.
Wow.
So
Cool.
So we went twice, 2 years in a row. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed it very much. But
That was during the shipyard project, right?
Yep.
That's why you
that
got
was
the...
a big shipyard project. That's the one picture out there that we have with the president. I'm with the president. We're on the tarmac at Logan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They all came in to he ceremonially signed a bill that contained a waiver that gave us the money. So it was a lot of fun.
It's amazing.
The other guy, Ronnie Kaufman, he was Bush 41 appointed him as the Undersecretary of Political Affairs. He had an office in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I go down early enough just to get in the cab to just about at the White House at about 11 o'clock. And he's, I was coming, so he'd come out and meet me so I didn't have to go through all the security stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd talk about old times. And then he'd say, well, it's time for lunch. So we'd go down into the east wing of the White House, and we'd have lunch there, and you'd see all these people that you knew. And the first time I went down, we were in a room with a round table. It was just Ronnie and I. They'd see about 6 or 7, but a guy comes in with a towel. He looked like he had almost like a tuxedo with a white towel over his arm.
Yeah, like a butler almost.
And he would take our orders. So I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. And I'm getting ready to come out and wash my hands. And I pulled down a paper towel out of the rack. And here it is. The paper towel has the seal of the president on it.
Paper towel?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
so I said, these are paper. These don't show up on any machines. So I pulled a stack about that thick out, and I stuck it in the back of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got back to Quincy, I went up to my office. I actually took those paper towels out and went through City Hall and gave each of the workers a paper towel with the seal of the White House on it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's wild. I wonder if they still have the seal on it. I bet they do.
Knowing Trump, if they weren't there, he'd bring them back.
Well, all
loves
the,
us.
Unless
all
it costs
the,
too much money, I'd be like, screw it.
He'd
the
pay for it.
dishes were
Yeah.
ceramic, and they had the seal, the president's seal on it, on all of everything. It was fascinating. So I did that. I don't know how many times. I just did it to sit down with Ronnie and talk and have fun. And Ronnie would there's a fellow who owns about 30 Palm restaurants, PSALM restaurants, in all the big cities, and the biggest ones in Washington.
Huh.
And you go in, and they have the busts of people, famous people, and right in Ronnie's Coffin's bust was right in the middle of all of them. And you sit there, and first time I was there, a couple of the Kennedy family came in,
Wow.
and you see all these people, you know, and Ronnie had an old junk of a car. His dad was poor. None of us had any money. And so I'd usually stay at the Capitol Hilton, and he would come over and pick me up, and we'd go over, he'd take me to the Palm, because he knew the owner. He got to know everybody, you know what I did. And he had this old junk of a car, and I go, Ronnie, did you borrow this from somebody? No, it's my car. I brought it with me. Ronnie, the oil light's on. The oil light's always on.
The light's always on.
And then all of a sudden he hits the brakes and the brakes squeal. I said, Ronnie, you need new brake shoes. Oh, I'll get them in 4 or 5 months. So all these limousines are pulling in front of the Palm restaurant. And, you know, the doorman's out there helping everybody out. And we come in next, and the doorman's like, Ronnie, how you doing, buddy? Car still running? And it's an old piece of junk, you know. And the guy gets in it and drives it to park it, valet park it, and the muffler's popping, boom, boom. Lights start breaking on and off, and I'm, oh my God, Ronnie. I said, why don't you get a good car?
That's so funny.
I never invest in cars.
Well,
He said,
not a bad thought.
and when we came out to get out, the guy bought the car, and I looked at him, he winked at me, and I said, yeah, I know. we had a lot of fun that way. Yeah,
Oh, little clunker.
Yeah, a little clunker, yeah.
Oh my word.
That'll be fine.
And you know, when Ronnie was working, he had a birthday, and he was down the hall from the president, and so Bush 41 calls and says, Ronnie, you have a few minutes after we finish today? Ronnie, of course, you say yes to the president. He says, why don't you go upstairs to our unit, their apartment, and where they live. And so Ronnie said, oh, okay. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't associate his birthday with what was happening.
Mm.
And he went upstairs, and Ronnie loves chocolate cake. And Barbara Bush had baked a chocolate cake.
Mm.
And he sat up there with the president and the first lady eating chocolate cake for his birthday, which she made for him.
Oh,
That's so sweet.
And he was telling me that after they were done, he and the president walked out on the balcony to overlook the Potomac River. And he said, Jim, he said, I just started to laugh. And he said, the president looked at me and he's kind of funny and said, what are you laughing at, Roy? He said, my dad was a failed shoe salesman. We were dirt poor. We grew up in Quincy and we were dirt poor and all that stuff. And he said, here I am standing on the portico of the White House with the President of the United States, just having eaten birthday cake baked by the First Lady, you know. And he just kept
Wild.
laughing, you know.
wild.
That's amazing.
And until Bush died, Ronnie, for example, put together every one of his birthday parties.
Really?
He would take a full 2 weeks and go to Texas. And he'd plan all the, he knew just like everything you want. Like they liked the Blue Ridge Mountain Boys.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the favorite groups for Bush 41. And Ronnie always, you know, in fact, he did a couple of favors for me for Luke with the Blue Ridge Boys in Nashville. Because he knew all those people. So, but he would go down there and it was family.
Yeah.
It was family.
Wow.
Calls me up on the phone one day. I'm in my office and the phone rings, the secretary says, oh, Jim, Ronnie Kaufman's on the phone. And they always put him through. Ronnie, how you doing? I'm doing great. He says, you'll never guess where I am. Guess where I am. I don't know where you are, Ronnie. He said, guess where I am. I said, Washington? No. Houston? No. Where are you, Ronnie? He says, I'm in Kittybunkport, up at the Bush home up in the Northeast.
Oh.
And he said, now do you know where I am there? I said, oh yeah, you in the bathroom? And he laughs, he said, no, he says, I'm on the golf course.
Oh, cool.
Ronnie, you don't play golf. No, but I'm on the golf course. He said, what are you doing on the golf course, Ronnie? He said, you want to know who's with me? I said, yeah, Ronnie. He says, President Bush, the governor of Texas, George Walker Bush, the governor of Pennsylvania, and one of the other governors, and he started to laugh and he hung up on me.
And he hung up.
Yeah, I was sitting at my desk like this, laughing my head off, you know. And he hung up on me.
How rude. Just called to brag.
Yep.
Where am I? I'm on the golf course. Who am I there with? Oh, the president. I forget the governor of Pennsylvania's name. Tom Ridge. Governor Tom Ridge was there, and another governor, as well as the governor, George Walker Bush, who was then the governor of Texas. Jeb Bush wasn't there. He was Jeb Bush. He was down from Florida.
Yeah. What's Ronnie up to nowadays?
Ronnie,
Is he still alive?
whenever Bush left office, Ronnie went to work for a firm called Dutco, and they were a big lawyer firm, and they lobbied.
Ah.
So he became a lobbyist,
Wow.
and his customers included Coca-Cola down in Atlanta,
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
and also one of the big motorcycle companies out in the Midwest. What's one of the biggest?
Harley.
Harley Davidson.
Oh, wow.
He handled all those big accounts,
Dang.
You know.
That's a lot.
and so he has there's one house they tell me left between the Capitol building and the White House, and Ronnie owns that.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
I got a call from him, and this is when I think Romney was governor up there in Massachusetts, and Romney would always have Ronnie come up when he gave a major speech, so Ronnie could criticize his speech. And so I get a call down there in Washington. It was an inaugural. I don't know. I think it was George Walker Bush's inaugural, and they were at Ronnie's house. And
Yeah.
there was the current governor, Governor Baker. He was there. Former governor, Republican Governor Bill Weld was there. Romney was there, and 5 or 6 more. And he called me. I said, "What, Ronnie?" I said, "Why are you calling me?" He said, "Well, we were all just talking about you."
Oh. Oh.
Oh,
I
okay.
said, "Well, you could have invited me. I didn't have to answer call, you know."
Right.
He said, "You're a Democrat."
Wow. Term
That is
loosely now.
true. Very loose now, yes.
Well, I left the Democrats.
You're an independent. They've all lost their minds, Pappy.
What's that?
The Democrats have lost their minds.
They're nuts.
They really are. They're
They
insane.
don't represent people anymore.
No.
They represent an ideology.
Yes. That's a good way to
And
put it.
one of the most crazy is Senator Warren.
She's
She's
such
a-
a nutball.
She's a scary lady.
Lying about that's what makes me so mad that no one's mad about that.
I feel like that's such a huge deal, and that's something like if a Republican did that, lied about
Can you imagine?
their
Heritage.
their lineage.
If you're a Democrat and you tell a lie and it's for good purpose, it's a moral act.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything you do is moral if it promotes socialism.
And it's justify the means. Okay, Machiavelli.
That's really scary.
Yeah, I served under some interesting liberal governors. First governor, when I was in the legislature, I'd met him before, but not as a representative, was Michael Dukakis.
I've heard of him.
See, I know that name.
He ran for president.
That's how I know him.
And Michael's from old Greek money. His family had tons of money, but he would never spend any of his own money. But he would love to spend the people's money for every program. And my first bill went through the House and the Senate, and I wanted to go up and see him to make sure he signed it. And I had heard all these things about his lifestyle, how in the summer he rode his bicycle to the governor's office, in the winter he did the Red Line, and he never went out to eat lunches. All those guys up there take 2 and 3 hour lunches. He would never do that, and I was told he carried a brown bag for lunch. He bought sandwiches.
That's cool.
So I go up there, it was about 11:45, and I walk in, and I said, Governor, I have a few minutes before lunch. I said, I'd like to have him just check my bill over and make sure it's okay. And she called him, and he said, oh, send a representative in. So I went in and sat down and went through the bill, we chatted a bit, and he reaches in the desk, this is God's honest truth. He reaches in the desk and he pulls out a brown bag. And he says, Representative, how would you like a bologna sandwich? I said, I gotta have a bologna sandwich with the governor. This would be a story I can tell forever. I said,
Yes.
What about half a bologna sandwich? So he cuts it, gives me half his bologna sandwich.
What a nice guy. Was it good?
That's good, sure.
That's so
I
strange.
bet it
So,
was.
so he came from money and still behaved that way.
That's really neat.
strange.
Let me use the restroom real quick.
He appointed a couple of commissions, and some of the commissions would meet at his house and some in Brookline. And the house was on the outside. It was neat looking, but it was old. And when I went inside, the rugs were clean, but they were old and thread worn.
Yeah,
The
I know
furniture
what you
was
mean.
old. It's like they never put any money in the house. And I was told that he did his own driveway with a snow blower. It was 15 years old. Never worked. Always having trouble with it. And he raised the kids, because she went off and she was actually drinking alcohol, pure alcohol, rubbing alcohol in bottles. Almost killed herself.
Yeah.
You know,
Whoa.
in that place, I'll tell you.
That is really strange.
He never spent any money of his own.
He must have just been super frugal. I guess.
I had him in to speak at Quincy College a couple of times. Came in on the Red Line. One time he got off in North Quincy instead of getting off at Quincy Center. Instead of waiting and catching the Red Line to Quincy Center, he got out and walked Hancock Street to Quincy Center.
I just got. Oh, well. Was it snowing?
No, it was summer.
Oh, okay. But then that's kind of hot sometimes.
He's but he was. I said, boy, he was the last person I ever wanted to see run for president. And we had that crazy picture taken of himself in the tank with that helmet on. that killed him. But the other one, I come home from Washington. I'd go down and fly down in the morning, come fly back in the evening. Get home late. I'd drop in bed beside your mother and grandmother, and I'd say, I hope that John Kerry never runs for president. Wouldn't you know? He runs for
Wouldn't you know? He absolutely. Man. That was. I still remember that day. I was really young. But I remember thinking, if John Kerry wins this presidency, what are we going to do?
People, I talked to people, everyone I could about him. They said, what's he like? I said, you want me to tell you the truth? He's an empty suit. There's nothing inside the man. He has no thought of his own. He's not original in anything. And he lost, thank God.
Yep. Thank you, Electoral College.
We married Teresa. Therese. He called her Therese. She was married to Heinz Ketchup
Yep.
family, and he was killed in a copter crash, and then John Kerry comes along and snatches her up. Kerry had money of his own anyway, but she had a lot of money. And they bought the old Russian embassy in Georgetown. And every time we went for the winter mayor's conference in Washington, we'd be invited out there. About 6 or 8 of us mayors and our wives would be invited out to John Kerry's, and it was the same routine. You know, after we were there about 10 minutes and we're all there, she'd come down the steps and she'd stop on the 10th floor step from the bottom, and she would start talking about that embassy, that beautiful home, and she'd say, that's not a very expensive painting there. That only costs $3 million. Then she'd go and she'd play up to her. She'd say, that one costs $10 million. And then she'd talk a little bit about the house, and then in so many words she'd say, now you've been here, you're freeloaded, get out. That was okay with us because when we left Carrie's house, we just had to walk 2 blocks to Philharmonicus. That's the best Italian restaurant in Georgetown. And we'd go there, we'd eat, and we'd talk, and we'd get out of there about 2 in the morning. Yeah. That was a strange world for your grandmother.
Yeah.
From the church to the...
Politics, yeah.
What a strange transition that must have been for her.
Big time.
Aww.
You always tried to catch her. She always helped people. She always had a group. She had, as you know, she's had a group of women that she brought together over 40 years,
Wow.
and they would help different people. And the